for stopping by. My name is Edshara, and today I will be doing my July wrap-up. Now, in the month of July, I started 7 books, and I only finished 6 of them. However, overall, it was a great reading month for me, and I was very happy with the majority of what I read. I will start with the books that I didn't finish, and that was For Only a Season by Charles R. Butts Jr. This was a Christian fiction novel, and the main premise of it was the main character, Scooter, has the ability to see and speak to ghosts. And I thought that was kind of out of the box for a Christian fiction novel. I haven't really read anything like that in the past, so it had me interested. However, it wasn't executed well, and I didn't end up finishing it. I had a couple of problems. The first being the book was overly descriptive. I feel like I have a pretty good imagination. I just need the author to set the stage and then kind of let my imagination fill in the blanks. Instead, in this case, you know, there were so many descriptions, you know, mundane actions were being described in detail that I didn't need, and it got to the point where it felt like he was just trying to fill up the pages to make the story longer, rather than trying to really push the plot forward. Next, the family in the book is well off financially, and I initially liked that because the family in the book owns the land that their ancestors were once slaves on. And I thought that was interesting, but again, with the excessive details, it just kind of kept getting thrown out there at just how rich they were. You know, we're talking renovation after renovation and, you know, their fancy cars. And rather than it being something that was just kind of in the background that we knew, it kind of felt like it started to take up more of the plot than it needed to. Last was halfway through the book, there was some adult sexy time. Now, I am not a prude. I have read books with adult sexy time in them before, none of which have ever been Christian fiction. And it just got to the point where, with the other problems that I had with the book, I just felt like it was unnecessary and it was just done in bad taste, in my opinion. I felt like the story could have been moved along with the allusion to the two characters sleeping together. I didn't need a play-by-play of how they got down in the middle of this book. And it really irritated me a bit because there was another scene where the characters were caught in bed together. And the way that it was written, you wouldn't have really known that they had actually had sex until you found out later that one of the characters, the female character, got pregnant. Other than that, you wouldn't have really known that they actually slept together. And I just, in my opinion, there wasn't any need for that in a book that is labeled as Christian fiction. That's next, I want to talk about the books that I did enjoy this month. The first one being Furthermore by Tahara Mafi. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It was perfect for me. It was the perfect amount of whimsy without being over the top. I enjoyed Alice and Oliver's friendship. I liked that they didn't start out as friends, really. They didn't really like each other, and they had to learn how to trust one another. They had to learn how to communicate with one another, and that was really good to see the progression of that relationship throughout the book. I also liked the overall theme of kind of, I guess you could call it self-love or self-acceptance, which is really what Alice had to kind of go through, and I loved that it was a process, something that she had to learn, and it was something that she had to accept. And I really enjoyed how Tahara Mafi kind of wove that throughout the story, and it really played into her Alice's magical abilities. And I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I loved how the two kind of balanced each other out. It really worked well. And next, I read A City of Saints and Thieves by Natalie C. Anderson. This was another one that I gave 4 stars. I'm really glad that I picked this one up. It focused on Tina, who was seeking revenge for the murder of her mother. And I felt like Tina was a pretty well-rounded character. You know, she was vulnerable, she was resilient, and even though some of her methods of survival were perhaps not legal or ethical, I felt like she utilized the system or the tools that were within her world. Also, I really enjoyed the fact that she was open to alternative scenarios. You know, she had one person in her focus as to who was responsible for the murder of her mother. And she wanted that person really badly. Was willing to, you know, put her ego to the side or put her pride to the side and, you know, really think and, you know, take a look at, you know, all the different options and all the different scenarios surrounding the death. Next, I read A List of Cages by Robin Rowe. This was the book of the month for the buddy read group that I am in on Facebook. And I personally gave the book 5 stars. I enjoyed it for the journey. I enjoyed it for kind of the roller coaster of emotions that I went on. And so I ended up giving it 5 stars. Now I know that this is a book that is a little bit iffy for some people. The big thing I think a lot of people had issue with is the fact that a lot of the adults are pretty crappy, and most of them are actually educators. Now, I would have loved to see a more balanced view of the adults in the book, because I do think that there are more adults out there that are willing to help, that are willing to listen, than there are bad ones. But I feel like to a certain degree, I kind of understood and identified with the bad adults. I had, growing up, great teachers, and then I also had not so great teachers. And while I knew in my head that if I needed to, I could talk to some of those great teachers, I could, you know, tell them my thoughts, for the most part, the bad teachers ruined that for me. And so, even though, like I said, I would have loved to have seen a more balanced view of the adults in the book, because I think that would have been more realistic, at the same time, I kind of got it. And that's just from my own personal experiences. Also, I chose to focus kind of on the journey that I went through. Like I said, I was angry with this book. I was sad with this book. I was happy. I loved the friendships that the teenagers in the book had. The relationship between Julian and Adam was amazing. The relationship that, you know, Adam had with his own, you know, with his own friends, and how they kind of, you know, accepted Julian and how they went to bat for each other. I thought that was really good. And also, Adam had ADHD in the book, and I felt like, you know, it was a good representation. I don't know for sure if it was, because I don't have any firsthand experience with ADHD, but I do know that it's, you know, I didn't feel, you know, odd or weird reading about his own experiences within the book. So I really enjoyed the book, and I personally gave it 5 stars because I thought it was well written and I liked it. Lastly, as far as library books go, I read A Star-Touched Queen. I wasn't sure if this was going to come in, but it did. And this was by Roshani Chachki. I hope I'm saying that right. I hate mispronouncing names. But this one was really good too. I think I gave this one 4 stars as well. It did take me on a bit of a journey, because in the beginning I really loved it, and then towards the middle, the main character Maya, she was making some really stupid choices, and it was irritating me, but she did end up redeeming herself, and the end finished really well, and I loved it. And I am interested in the sequel to A Star-Touched Queen. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I do think it's more of a companion to A Star-Touched Queen. It does focus on one of the characters from A Star-Touched Queen in the sequel, and that particular character, I liked her, so I am really interested in picking up the sequel. Lastly, I read 2 books that I own. The first one being The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This was one that, I'll be honest, I was hesitant to read. I bought this all the way back in April, and I left it in its Barnes & Noble bag, and I didn't take it out until this month, and I almost pushed it back again, because my thought process was, why do I need to read a fictional account of something that I can see on the news, unfortunately? But I'm glad I didn't listen to me and listen to the hype and pick this up, because it was really, really good. And you can see I have all kinds of tabs because there were a lot of really good points made in the book. But I think the thing that I loved about this book the most was the fact that it was well balanced. Yes, there was a great family dynamic. Yes, you know, it was emotional and it, you know, kind of pulled on the heartstrings. But the thing was, it was balanced. And whether you agree with an opinion or disagree with an opinion, everybody got a voice in this book. Everybody got a chance to speak. Everybody got a chance to be heard in this. And she did it really, really well. I have a more detailed review on my Goodreads profile if you want to check it out. Also, I would like to do a individual video for this. I'm trying to see if I can get all of my thoughts together coherently for a video. But if I do that, it'll probably be just something I randomly post if I do it at all. And the last book that I have to talk about for the month of July is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This was one that I tried to read it alone as an ebook, didn't work. I tried to listen to the audiobook by itself, that didn't work. So I kind of did a read along. I followed along in my physical copy while I listened to the audiobook, and that was by far the best option. I loved this. It was amazing. And I feel like with all the hype that it got, nobody really touched the surface of what this book entails and just how good this book is. And I realized, you know, a little bit through the, you know, the first part of the book, that the only thing I knew about this was that Katie broke up with Edshara and then their planet was destroyed. Other than that, I didn't really know anything else. And so I kind of went into this blind, and I was actually very pleased by that. For this, I think going in only knowing that little plot point that I mentioned is the perfect way to go, because there's so much happening and it's this nice fun ride that you kind of get all these little surprises to, and I was very happy about that. Also, there were so, you know, I knew it was mixed media, but there were so many different things going on in this book that were a surprise when I turned the page. So I would highly recommend this book. Obviously there are a couple of little things wrong. Like, there are a couple of times where Katie would make a choice, and then when the consequences would come around, she'd whine about it. And it was like, okay, well, you made the choice, live with it. But you know, the things that I had issue with were very minute as far as the bigger picture goes. Definitely read it if you like sci-fi, because it was amazing and I loved every minute of it. So much, in fact, that I have ordered Gemina and I'm waiting for it to come, because I plan on reading it for the tome topple as long as I get the audiobook in time. But that's it for my July wrap-up. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts and your opinions are. I'd love to hear them. I will also be leaving all of my social media links down in the description box, so please follow and friend me over on all my social media platforms. I would love to have you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. And until next time, guys, God bless. Bye.